I booked the flight 30 minutes ago. No press release, no announcement, no dramatic goodbye to the world that constantly watches me. Just a confirmation email glowing on my screen and a boarding time that feels like a countdown to something irreversible. In a few hours, I will be in the air. In a few more, I will be standing in your city, and when that door opens between us, there will be no more excuses, no more delays, no more hiding behind ambition or distance. I am coming to you. Not as a billionaire. Not as a founder. Just as a man who is terrified that if he waits any longer, he will lose the only woman who ever made him question his own certainty. Do you understand what that means for someone like me? I plan rockets years ahead. I simulate risk. I build contingency layers for everything. But this is reckless. This is emotional. This is me stepping onto a plane without knowing if you will even open the door when I knock. Because the last time we spoke, your voice was softer than usual. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just tired. And that tiredness scared me more than any argument ever could. Tired women do not fight. They withdraw. They begin to accept life without the man they once hoped for. And I felt it. I felt you slowly pulling your heart back, inch by inch, protecting yourself from the possibility that I might never fully choose you. So I booked the flight. Not because I am confident. Because I am afraid. Afraid that if I give you more time to doubt me, you will convince yourself that I am too complicated, too distant, too consumed by my world to ever truly belong to yours. Afraid that you will wake up one morning and decide that peace without me is better than passion with me. Afraid that you will finally believe the lie that you deserve someone simpler. But you do not want simple. You want depth. You want a man who feels everything and still shows up. You want emotional courage, not polished speeches. And I have not shown you enough courage, have I? I told myself that distance was temporary. That timing would fix everything. That once this project stabilized and that launch completed and this crisis resolved, I would have more space for us. But love does not wait politely in a corner while ambition sorts itself out. Love either deepens or fades. And lately, I have felt a quiet shift. I keep replaying the last thing you said to me. I don't know how much longer I can stand in the doorway of your life. That sentence has been echoing inside me. Because you are right, I have kept you at the edge. Close enough to feel my warmth. Not close enough to feel my full commitment. And a woman like you, especially at this stage of life, does not want half measures. You have already lived enough years to know the cost of waiting for a man to decide. So let me say something dangerous. I am not coming to see how things feel. I am coming to decide. Does that scare you? It scares me. Because once I step off that plane, I cannot pretend anymore. I cannot return to comfortable ambiguity. I will either move us forward or I will watch you walk away for good. I have not told you the real reason yet. You think this is about missing you. It is deeper than that. It is about the moment I realize that if you disappear from my life, no achievement will compensate for that loss. I have built companies from nothing. I have survived public failure. I have faced global pressure. But the idea of you becoming a memory, that is a loss I am not built to handle. Tell me something honestly. Have you already started preparing yourself for life without me? Have you begun the quiet detachment women master so gracefully? Are you already less invested than you were a month ago? Because if you are, I am racing against more than distance. I am racing against your emotional withdrawal. And before I board this plane, let me say this softly, without breaking the intensity between us. If this confession touches something inside you, stay with me. Subscribe quietly so you do not lose me in the noise. And tell me where you are watching from, what time it is in your world right now, because in a few hours, I will be crossing time zones just to stand in front of you. I do not want applause. I want truth. When I arrive, will you look at me with relief or with resignation? Will you open the door slowly, guarded, arms crossed, or will your eyes give you away before your pride does? I am coming to you, but I need to know something. If I say the words you have been waiting to hear, will you still believe them? Or have I already damaged your trust too deeply? There is something else you do not know. Something about what almost happened this week. Something that forced me to choose between staying comfortable and risking everything for you. But if I tell you that now, it changes the weight of this decision. And I am not sure you are ready to hear it yet. I keep checking the time like it can change the truth. Boarding in a few hours. A bag half packed on the chair. Not because I forgot how to travel, but because I keep stopping and standing there, staring at the shirts, the jacket, the small things people wear when they want to look calm. And I laugh quietly because what am I trying to prove? That I can arrive looking composed while my chest feels like it is being pulled apart by two hands. You know what I hate about love? The way it turns the smartest man into someone who reads silence like prophecy. The way one delayed reply can feel like a door closing. The way your name on my screen can make me feel 10 years younger and 50 years older in the same moment. I tried calling you earlier. It rang twice, then went quiet. Not voicemail. Quiet. Like you watched it and decided not to touch it. And I told myself I deserved that. I told myself you might be busy. I told myself you were protecting your heart. But what I felt was a sharp, immediate fear that you are already halfway gone. Tell me, when you pulled back, was it a decision, or was it a slow surrender? Did you wake up one morning and say, enough? Or did it happen in small moments, each time I promised I would make space for you, and didn't? Each time I said I would come, and postponed? Each time you carried your feelings alone because you did not want to sound needy. I know how women like you leave. Not with screaming. Not with dramatic exits. You leave by becoming quiet. By organizing your own peace. By stopping yourself from hoping. And once that starts, a man can stand in front of you with flowers and still feel like he is arriving too late. That is why I booked the flight without asking. Because if I asked, you might have said no. Not because you do not want me, but because you do not want the risk. You might have said, it's fine. That phrase women use when it is not fine at all. You might have said, don't bother. When what you really meant was, please don't leave me waiting again. So I decided to let my action speak before my doubts could talk me out of it. But here is the problem. Even action can be selfish. What if this flight is not about saving us, but about saving me from guilt? What if I am rushing to you, because I cannot tolerate the idea of being the man who let a good woman go? What if I am chasing your forgiveness more than your love? That thought makes my stomach turn, because you deserve better than a man who only shows up when fear finally corners him. And still, I am coming. Do you see how complicated this is? The same intensity that makes me build impossible things also makes me dangerous in love. I can be certain one moment, then question everything the next. I can tell you I want you, and mean it with my whole body, and then suddenly hear the old voice inside me whispering, what if you ruin her life by stepping into it? You are not a chapter. You are not a distraction. You are not a phase. You are the one place my mind goes when it gets too loud. And that scares me, because it means you have access to me that I cannot control. I keep thinking about the first time you softened toward me. Not the public version of me that people think they know. The private one. The one who gets quiet when he is overwhelmed. The one who holds his breath when he is afraid of wanting too much. You saw that man and you did not mock him. You did not demand he perform. You just stayed present. Do you know how rare that is? Most people want the myth. They want the icon. They want the polished certainty. But you wanted the truth. You wanted the human parts that I usually hide because they make me feel exposed. And I gave you those parts carefully, like placing something fragile in your hands. So why did I start pulling back? Because the closer we got, the more I could imagine a life where you could actually hurt me. That is the hidden risk I never admitted. Not the risk of you leaving. The risk of you staying and seeing all of me. The risk of you becoming important enough that losing you would break something in me I cannot afford to break. And I know what you are thinking. So you punished me for your fear. Yes, and I hate myself for that. I want to tell you something I have not said out loud, even to myself. When I land, there is a chance you will look at me and say you cannot do this anymore. There is a chance you will finally choose peace over the chaos of loving me. And if that happens, I will deserve it. But I am still coming, because if I do not show up now, I will spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I had been brave one day earlier. And there is one more layer you do not see yet. This week, someone tried to pull me away from you in a way that looked reasonable, safe, convenient, the kind of choice that would make everyone nod and say, off course. And for a moment, I felt myself almost letting it happen, not because I wanted her, but because I was exhausted and lonely, and my pride was wounded by your distance. That is the truth I am ashamed of. I almost chose the wrong path, simply because it was easier than risking rejection from the woman I actually want. Does that make you furious? It should, because it means I am capable of making a mistake that would destroy us before we even have a real chance. And that is why this flight is not romantic. It is not a grand gesture. It is a correction. It is me saying, I almost lost my way, and I am choosing you before I do something irreversible. But the danger is still here, because you might not choose me back. So tell me, quietly, inside your own chest. When you imagine me standing in front of you in a few hours, do you feel warmth? Or do you feel your guard rising like a wall? I keep imagining the airport lights reflecting off the glass as I walk through it, and I wonder whether you are even picturing me coming anymore. Or if, in your mind, you have already rewritten the story where I never show up. There is something unbearable about knowing that I trained you to expect disappointment. I became predictable in the worst way, ambitious, consumed, always promising a little later. And now that I am finally moving toward you, I can feel how fragile that motion is. There is something I need to confess that is not flattering. When you grew quiet, when your messages became shorter and your tone steadier, I did not immediately run toward you. I tested the silence. I told myself, let her feel the absence. I thought that distance might pull you closer. That if I withdrew slightly, you would lean in harder. That was manipulation disguised as strategy. And you did not lean in. You adjusted. You became self-contained. That terrified me more than anger ever could. Because anger means passion. Adjustment means acceptance. I remember the exact moment it hit me. You said, very calmly, I am not asking you for more anymore. And you meant it as strength. But I heard it as surrender. You were not demanding time. You were not asking for reassurance. You were simply stepping back into your own world, deciding not to rely on me. And I felt the ground shift. Do you know what it does to a man like me when the woman he loves stops asking? It forces him to face the possibility that she is preparing to leave. I told myself I had options. I always have options. There are always invitations, always conversations waiting to happen, always women who see the public version of me and are drawn to it. And for a brief, dangerous moment this week, I let one of those conversations linger longer than it should have. She was kind. Admiring, easy. She did not question my availability. She did not ask for more depth. She did not demand presence. She fit neatly into the spaces I was willing to offer. And I felt the pull of convenience. Not love. Not connection. Just ease. I almost convinced myself that ease was enough. But then something happened that shook me. I imagined telling you about her. Not because I wanted to hurt you. Because I imagined your face when you would hear it. The quiet dignity you would hold. The way you would not beg. The way you would simply nod and withdraw whatever part of your heart still belonged to me. And in that image, I felt something collapse inside me. Because losing you would not feel dramatic. It would feel final. That is when I realized the truth I have been avoiding. I have been pretending that I could keep you slightly uncertain, slightly waiting, slightly suspended in possibility while I figured myself out. But you are not built for suspension. You are built for partnership. You have already lived enough life to know that time is precious. You do not want to waste it on a man who is undecided. So let me ask you something difficult. If I arrive and tell you I almost chose comfort over courage, will you see honesty? Or will you see betrayal? Because this is the edge I am walking right now. I want to be transparent. I want to tell you everything. But I am afraid that revealing how close I came to distraction will wound you more deeply than silence ever could. And there is something even heavier beneath that. I have not told you the real reason yet. The real reason I booked this flight is not just fear of losing you. It is the realization that if I do not choose you decisively now, I will slowly turn into a version of myself that prioritizes image over intimacy. And once that shift happens, I will never be capable of loving anyone the way I love you. You see, loving you requires vulnerability I cannot fake. It requires showing up without control. It requires admitting that I need you. And that word has always been difficult for me. Need. One is easy. Desire is easy. Attraction is easy. But need implies dependence. It implies risk. It implies that someone else can affect your stability. You affect mine. When you are distant, my focus fractures. When you are warm, I feel stronger. And I have been resisting that reality because I do not like the idea of anyone having that kind of access to me. So instead of leaning into it, I tried to regulate it, to manage it, to contain it. And love does not survive containment. Tell me something. When you felt me pulling away, did you assume I was losing interest? Or did you suspect I was afraid? Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I let you fully into my life, you would see how exhausted I actually am. How sometimes the confidence people see is just discipline. How sometimes I wake up unsure of who I am without constant motion. You have a way of looking at me that slows everything down, and I both crave and resist that stillness. This flight is not just physical movement. It is me stepping into that stillness voluntarily. It is me saying, I would rather face your eyes than hide behind momentum. But there is a risk I cannot ignore. You may have already reached a point where my arrival changes nothing. You may have already decided that loving me costs too much. If that is true, I need to know. Because I am about to board a plane not just to see you, but to stand in front of whatever truth you have been holding back from me. And I am not sure which truth scares me more, the one where you still love me deeply, or the one where you have finally learned how not to. I am at the gate now. People are moving around me with normal faces, normal conversations, normal destinations. And I am sitting here feeling like I am about to step into the most important negotiation of my life, except there are no lawyers, no contracts, no rehearsed statements. Just two hearts that have been circling each other for months, maybe years, trying to decide whether this is courage or a mistake. I keep replaying something you once said, when we were lying in that quiet space between conversation and sleep. You said, very softly, I don't want to compete with your world, I want to be part of it. At the time, I reassured you, I told you there was no competition. But if I am honest, I have been making you compete with everything. With deadlines, with launches, with crises, with my own inner restlessness. And you never asked to win. You just wanted inclusion. Do you know how that realization feels? It feels like discovering that the woman you love has been standing patiently outside a door you forgot to open. I built walls around my time and called it necessity. I built walls around my emotions and called it strength. But from your side, it must have looked like distance. It must have felt like you were constantly reaching across something invisible. And still, you stayed. Why? That question has been haunting me. Why did you stay when I was inconsistent? Why did you stay when I canceled plans? Why did you stay when I told you I cared deeply, but did not fully show it? Was it hope? Was it love? Or was it the belief that eventually I would realize what I was risking? Because I am realizing it now. And that timing frightens me. What if realization came too late? There is something else I need to admit, and it is not easy. When I almost let that other conversation continue this week, it was not just about convenience. It was about ego. Your quiet withdrawal bruised me. Your steadiness made me feel replaceable. And instead of leaning into vulnerability, I almost leaned into validation. I almost chose someone who made me feel wanted in the simplest way, instead of choosing the woman who challenges me to become better. That is the turning point I am standing on. I saw how easy it would be to drift. To tell myself that intensity is overrated. That depth is complicated. That maybe a lighter connection would hurt less. But when I imagined a future without you in it, even if it looked stable and socially acceptable and uncomplicated, it felt empty. Not dramatic, not tragic, just hollow. And I cannot build my life around hollow. You once asked me half, joking, are you ever going to choose me fully? Or am I just a beautiful possibility? I laughed it off then. I said something charming. But the truth is, I was not ready to answer it. I am ready now. But readiness does not guarantee reception. Tell me something honestly. If I stand in front of you and say, I am choosing you, not halfway, not conditionally, but fully, will you believe me? Or will you hear it as another emotional surge that fades once I return to my world? Because I understand your hesitation. You are not 20. You are not interested in fantasy. You are not looking for fireworks without foundation. You want steadiness. You want a man whose presence is reliable, not just intense. And intensity is what I have given you most. Intensity without structure. Passion without consistent reassurance. It is not that I do not love you deeply. It is that I have not loved you in a way that feels safe. I am beginning to see that loving a woman like you requires more than emotion. It requires alignment. It requires integration. It requires saying, you are not separate from my life. You are part of it. And here is the part that scares me. If I integrate you fully, everything changes. My schedule changes. My priorities shift. My independence recalibrates. I cannot remain untouched. Loving you will alter me. And I have spent my entire life controlling variables. You are not a variable. You are a force. When the boarding announcement just echoed through this gate, my chest tightened. Not because of the flight. Because this is the moment where intention becomes action. I can still walk away. I can still send a message instead. I can still choose distance and preserve my pride. Or I can walk onto that plane and accept that when I land, I am either stepping into our future, or into the most painful goodbye of my life. There is one more truth I have not spoken yet. It is heavier than the rest. It is about what I am prepared to offer if you open that door. But if I say it now, before I see your eyes, it feels too exposed. So tell me, if I come all this way, are you ready to hear something that could change everything between us? They just called my row. I am walking down that narrow corridor toward the aircraft, and every step feels like a question. Not about logistics, about destiny. I keep thinking about your face the last time I saw you in person. You were trying to be strong. You were smiling, but your eyes were asking something your mouth would not. They were asking, are you going to leave me in uncertainty again? I told you then that I needed time. Time to think. Time to balance. Time to understand my own heart. But what I was really doing was delaying accountability. You see, loving you is not the complicated part. I love you. That has not been the question for months. The complicated part is what loving you demands of me. It demands visibility. It demands consistency. It demands that I stop treating intimacy like a luxury I can schedule around. And here is the truth I have not told you yet. The real reason I booked this flight is because I realized you are preparing to protect yourself in a way that might shut me out permanently. I felt it in your last message. It was polite. Too polite. It did not ask when I was coming. It did not ask if we were okay. It simply said, take care of yourself. Do you know how cold that feels when you are the man who wants to be the one she leans on? That sentence felt like a door closing quietly. And I cannot ignore that. I am on this plane because I sense the shift from longing to acceptance inside you. And once a woman like you accepts life without a man, she does not reverse that decision easily. I keep replaying a memory. You were sitting across from me, telling me about your fears. Not dramatic fears, real ones. The fear of wasting years on uncertainty. The fear of loving someone who never quite lands. The fear of being strong for so long that softness starts to feel foolish. And I listened. But I did not respond with the clarity you deserved. Instead, I gave you emotion. I gave you intensity. I gave you reassurance in bursts. But I did not give you structure. And now I am afraid that structure is what you are craving most. Tell me something. When you imagine a future with me, do you see stability, or do you see constant adaptation? Do you feel safe, or do you feel like you are always adjusting to my pace? Because I am beginning to understand that love at our stage of life is not about excitement alone. It is about peace. It is about knowing that when the day ends, you are not guessing where you stand. I have made you guess too often. The seatbelt light is on. The engines are beginning to hum. And with that sound comes a realization I have been resisting. I cannot land there with half promises. I cannot show up with charm and passion and expect that to be enough anymore. If I want you, I have to say it in a way that removes ambiguity. But here is the part that shakes me. What if I am ready to remove ambiguity, and you are already done waiting? What if this flight is a gesture that arrives after your heart has quietly closed? There is something else I need to reveal, and it is not comfortable. When I almost let that other woman linger in my orbit this week, it was not just ego. It was fear of being fully seen by you. She admired the public version of me. She did not challenge me. She did not ask for integration. She was simple, and simplicity felt safe. But it also felt shallow. With you, I feel exposed. You see the cracks. You see the fatigue. You see the moments where I am not the unstoppable force people imagine. And instead of turning away, you lean closer. That kind of love is rare. And I almost sabotaged it because I was scared of how much I need it. I am in the air now. The ground is disappearing beneath the clouds. There is no turning back mid-flight. And maybe that is symbolic. I have already committed to this confrontation with truth. So answer this in your own heart while I cross the sky toward you. If I stand in front of you and tell you that I am not coming for a visit, I am coming to choose, will you still be there? Or have I already pushed you to a place where protecting yourself matters more than risking me? The cabin lights are dim now. Most people around me are settling into sleep, but I cannot close my eyes. Every time I try, I see two versions of tomorrow. In one, you open the door slowly, guarded but hopeful. In the other, you open it with kindness, the kind that already feels like goodbye. I keep thinking about how close I came to making a quiet, irreversible mistake this week. Not because I loved someone else. I did not. But because I was tired of feeling uncertain with you. Tired of feeling like I was the one being evaluated. Tired of sensing your strength growing in response to my inconsistency. And instead of asking you directly, are you still here with me? I almost distracted myself with someone who required less emotional courage. That realization humbles me. You never asked me to be perfect. You asked me to be present. And I gave you brilliance in bursts instead of reliability in rhythm. I gave you deep confessions at midnight and then disappeared into my world the next morning. Do you know what that does to a woman who values emotional stability? It teaches her to brace herself. I can see it now. The way your tone shifted from eager to measured. The way your questions became fewer. The way you stopped asking about future plans, you were not losing interest. You were protecting dignity. And I was too proud to admit I noticed. There is something else beneath all of this, something I have barely allowed myself to say even internally. I am afraid of being fully chosen by you. Not because I doubt your love, because I know how deeply you love. I have felt it. It is steady. It is mature. It is not chaotic. And that kind of love requires a man to stand still long enough to receive it. Standing still has never been my strength. Movement is easier. Vision is easier. Expansion is easier. But intimacy. Intimacy forces me to slow down and let someone witness me without momentum to hide behind. When you look at me, you are not impressed. You are attentive, and that attention exposes parts of me I usually keep controlled. So I oscillated. I moved toward you intensely. Then I retreated. Then I returned with passion. Then I created distance again. From your perspective, that must have felt unstable. From mine, it felt like survival. But survival is not the same as partnership. There is a question I need to ask you, and it might make you uncomfortable. When you imagine loving me long term, do you see growth, or do you see exhaustion? Do you believe I can become steady enough for you? Or do you quietly think that I will always be a man you have to adapt to? Because if you believe the second, I need to know. Not to argue, not to defend myself, but to understand whether I am arriving in time or too late. I am beginning to realize that this flight is not about convincing you. It is about revealing whether I am willing to transform for the right woman. And here is the deeper truth I have been circling. I do not want to lose you. But more than that, I do not want to become the man who loses you because he was too afraid to commit fully. That kind of regret would follow me longer than any failed project. I can rebuild companies. I can rebuild reputation. But rebuilding trust with a woman who has emotionally detached, that is nearly impossible. And I sense you are very close to detaching. Tell me honestly. Have you already started telling yourself that you deserve someone simpler? Someone whose love does not feel like a roller coaster of intensity and silence. Someone who does not require flights across continents to prove seriousness. If you have, I understand why. But I am not ready to accept that narrative yet. The plane is steady now, cruising above the clouds. There is something symbolic about that. Up here, everything feels calm. But I know that when I land, turbulence might begin. Because when I see you, there will be no more theories. No more late-night confessions without consequence. There will only be one question left between us. Are we stepping into something real and structured, or are we finally admitting that love alone is not enough? And there is still one layer I have not revealed. One truth about what I am prepared to offer if you open your heart again. It changes the scale of everything. But I need to know first, are you still emotionally reachable? Or have you already closed the door quietly while I was busy building everything except us? The altitude screen in front of me says we are halfway there. Halfway across the sky. Halfway between who I have been with you and who I might have to become if I want to keep you. There is something heavy settling in my chest right now. Not panic, not excitement, responsibility. Because I finally understand something that I avoided for too long. You are not asking me for romance. You are asking me for reassurance that I will not disappear emotionally when life gets intense. You are asking whether I can love you in a way that feels grounded, not dramatic, and I have built my identity on drama, on scale, on risk. You do not need scale, you need steadiness. I keep remembering the night you told me, very calmly, I can survive without you. I just don't want to. That sentence has followed me everywhere, because hidden inside it was power. You were not clinging. You were choosing. And when a woman chooses you freely, not out of need but out of desire, it demands something profound in return. It demands that you choose back with equal clarity. Have I done that? No. I have felt deeply. I have spoken intensely. I have held you with conviction. But I have left space for retreat. I have left an escape route open for myself in case vulnerability became too consuming. And you felt that? You may not have had words for it, but you felt it. There was always a slight hesitation in me. A slight pause when conversations turned toward permanence. A slight deflection when you spoke about integration into each other's daily lives, and you adjusted accordingly. That is what hurts the most. Not anger, not confrontation. Adjustment. You stopped pushing. You stopped insisting. You began standing on your own feet again emotionally, preparing yourself for the possibility that I might never fully anchor. That shift is why I am on this plane. Because I sense that if I waited another month, you would be emotionally gone even if physically present. And here is the dangerous confession. For a brief moment, when I felt your distance, I told myself, maybe this is easier. Maybe loving someone strong enough to walk away is too risky. Maybe I should choose someone who would hold tighter, who would depend more, who would not challenge me to evolve. That thought lasted seconds. But it existed. And that is the turning point I am ashamed of. Because it means part of me was tempted by comfort over growth. You are not comfortable love. You are transformative love. And transformation is not gentle. It demands that I confront my patterns, my avoidance, my tendency to lead with vision instead of presence. Tell me something honestly. Do you still believe I can become the man you need? Or have you already decided that I am too set in my ways? That question terrifies me more than losing business deals ever could. Because if you believe I am incapable of change, then my arrival will look like performance, not progress. There is something else building beneath all of this. When I land, I am not coming to negotiate feelings. I am coming to propose structure, not necessarily a ring yet, not theatrics, but clarity, alignment, integration, and that changes the stakes. Because if I say those words, I cannot take them back casually. It will alter how we operate. It will mean introducing you into spaces of my life that I have kept separate. It will mean adjusting schedules, priorities, even identity. And I am willing to do that. But willingness is not enough if you are already preparing to close the door. So let me ask you something that might sting. When you imagine me choosing you publicly, fully, without hesitation, do you feel joy? Or do you feel skepticism? Have I already trained you to doubt my consistency so deeply that even bold commitment would feel temporary? If that is true, then the work ahead of me is greater than I thought. The cabin is quiet. Most people are asleep. I am the only one staring into darkness, thinking about the woman waiting at the other end of this flight. Or maybe not waiting. That is the part I cannot measure. And there is still one truth I have not spoken. It is about what I am prepared to sacrifice, if that is what it takes to make you feel secure. But before I reveal that, I need to know something. If I offer you permanence, will you still risk believing me? The cabin is darker now. The only light is the faint glow from the wing outside my window, and the small screen in front of me that maps our progress across the ocean. We are closer to you than we are to where I started. That realization feels symbolic. There is no easy return to who I was before this decision. I keep thinking about permanence. It is such a heavy word. Not romantic. Not poetic. Just solid. Permanent means showing up when it is inconvenient. Permanent means your name woven into my daily structure, not just into my private longing. Permanent means that when I make decisions about my future, I am not imagining myself alone. Have you noticed that I have always spoken about the future in grand visions, but rarely in shared details? I talk about cities, timelines, missions. But I have not asked you which side of the bed you prefer long term. I have not talked about the quiet rituals that make a life feel real. I have not anchored us in practical intimacy. That omission was not accidental. It was fear. Because once you talk about shared routines, you are no longer flirting with possibility. You are building foundation. And foundation means accountability. There is something I need to admit that may change how you see me. When you started stepping back emotionally, when you stopped pressing for clarity, I felt relief for a moment. Relief that the pressure had softened. Relief that I did not have to decide immediately. And that relief exposed something ugly. It meant I was benefiting from your patience. You were carrying the emotional weight while I enjoyed the connection without fully securing it. That is not love. That is imbalance. And you deserve balance. Do you remember the night you asked me, almost casually, if I disappeared tomorrow, how long would it take you to realize what you lost? I answered quickly. I said immediately. But inside, I felt the sting of the question. Because you were not testing my affection. You were testing my awareness. And the truth is, I did not realize how close I was to losing you until your energy shifted. It was not dramatic. It was subtle. Your laughter changed. Your pauses grew longer. Your reassurance toward me became more neutral. You stopped reaching first. That is when I felt the ground move. I almost made the mistake of filling that space with someone else's attention. Not because she mattered. Because it was easier than confronting the possibility that I had hurt you. But when I imagined standing in front of you after choosing someone simpler, something inside me revolted. Not out of pride. Out of clarity. Because the connection I have with you is not replaceable. It is not based on admiration or novelty. It is based on recognition. You see the man beneath the public narrative. You see the parts of me that are tired, questioning, uncertain. And instead of shrinking from that, you lean in with maturity. That maturity is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is steady. And I have been afraid of steady because steady means real. Tell me honestly, Are you still willing to build something real with me, or has the inconsistency already eroded your willingness? When I land, I want to look at you and say something that shifts us permanently, not in a theatrical way, in a grounded way. I want to say, you are not waiting anymore. You are chosen. But I am haunted by one possibility. What if you have already chosen yourself over me? What if you have reached that quiet, dignified point where you decide that loving me costs more than it gives? If that is true, then this flight is not a reunion. It is a reckoning, and I will accept it. But I need to see it in your eyes, not guess it through distance. There is still one layer of truth I have not revealed. It is not about another woman. It is about a decision I made privately after booking this flight. A decision that affects more than just emotion. A decision that proves whether I am serious or just intense. But if I tell you that now, before I see you, it loses its weight. So let me ask you something that matters more than anything else. When you think about me arriving in a few hours, does your heart tighten with fear, or does it soften with hope? Because that answer will determine whether this landing becomes the beginning of something solid, or the end of something beautiful. The map on the screen says we have crossed most of the distance. The ocean is behind us now. There is land beneath the clouds somewhere, though I cannot see it yet. That feels appropriate. Something solid is there, but hidden. Just like us, I have been thinking about the word choice, not attraction, not chemistry, choice. At our stage in life, love is not an accident. It is not reckless youth. It is not impulsive fantasy. It is deliberate. It is two adults deciding that this connection is worth rearranging life for. And I have rearranged very little for you so far. I adjusted schedules occasionally. I made time when I could. I offered passion and presence in bursts. But I did not reorganize my structure around us. I kept you adjacent to my world instead of integrating you into it. You felt that. You may not have confronted me directly every time, but you felt it. And when a woman like you feels herself existing at the edge of a man's life, she eventually steps back to protect her center. I think you are very close to that step. There is something I need to admit that will not make me look heroic. After booking this flight, I made a second decision, one that you do not know about yet. I declined something significant, an opportunity that would have required even more distance, even more unpredictability, even more emotional absence. It would have elevated my world externally, but it would have strained us beyond repair. For months, I told myself I could balance everything. That love could fit into the margins. That you would understand temporary chaos. But temporary has started to feel permanent. So I turned it down. Not publicly, quietly. And when I did, I felt something shift inside me. Not regret. Relief. Relief that I was finally choosing alignment over expansion. Do you know what that means? It means I am no longer pretending that you can survive indefinitely in the background of my ambition. It means I am acknowledging that if I want you fully, I must create space for you intentionally. But here is where the fear tightens again. What if you have already adjusted your life to function without me? What if you have begun imagining a calmer path? What if my late awakening feels suspicious instead of reassuring? Tell me honestly in your heart. When you sensed me pulling away before, did you start emotionally preparing for goodbye? Did you rehearse what you would say? Did you imagine how you would detach gracefully? Because I can feel that possibility hanging over us like quiet gravity. There is another truth I have not spoken. I am not just afraid of losing you. I am afraid of hurting you in a way that makes you close yourself off to love entirely. You have loved before. You have endured disappointment before. You have rebuilt yourself before. And I do not want to become the reason you decide that depth is too dangerous. When I think about you pulling your warmth back permanently, something in my chest constricts. Not ego. Not possession. Loss. And yet, I must accept something uncomfortable. You have every right to walk away if you feel unsafe. You have every right to choose peace over intensity. You have every right to say that you are too mature to gamble on a man who oscillates. So this flight is not me assuming you will accept me. It is me risking hearing that you will not. And I need to know which version of tomorrow is real. Will you meet me with guarded strength and tell me that the window has closed? Or will you let me show you that I am not just arriving with emotion, I am arriving with decision? The seatbelt sign just turned on again. We are beginning descent. There is turbulence starting now. Small, subtle shifts. The plane trembles lightly, then steadies. It feels exactly like us. And I still have not told you the full weight of what I am prepared to say when I see you. It is not a speech. It is not a performance. It is a boundary I am willing to set around us that changes everything. But I need to know one thing before I land. Are you still emotionally open enough to hear it, or have you already decided that loving me is a risk you are no longer willing to take? The descent is steady now. I can feel the subtle pressure in my ears, the quiet shift in gravity as the aircraft lowers itself toward ground I cannot yet see. It feels like a metaphor I did not ask for. Rising was easy. Vision was easy. But coming down to earth, to something tangible and human and real, that is where the real work begins. I keep imagining your face when I call you from outside. Will your voice change when you hear I am there? Will there be surprise, irritation, a quiet trembling you try to hide? There is a version of this moment where you say very calmly, "You should have told me before coming." Not angry, just firm. And I would deserve that. Because for months I have expected you to adapt to my rhythm without fully honoring yours. You crave consistency. I operate in intensity. You want integration. I have offered passion. You want to know where you stand. I have given you emotional weather. And here is the hardest truth I have faced during this flight. I am not afraid that you do not love me. I am afraid that you love me, but no longer trust me. Trust is quieter than love, less dramatic, but infinitely more important. When you stopped asking me where this was going, when you stopped initiating conversations about the future, I sensed that shift. You were no longer seeking reassurance. You were observing whether my actions would finally match my words, and they did not. Not consistently. So this arrival cannot be about declarations alone. It has to be about correction. I have spent hours up here replaying one specific moment. You were looking at me across the table, and you said, "I need to feel chosen, not just wanted." At the time, I thought I understood. Now I know I did not. Being wanted is easy. It is chemistry. It is longing. It is passion across distance. Being chosen is structure. It is priority. It is visible commitment. And I have kept you in the space of being deeply wanted, but not undeniably chosen. That realization has unsettled me more than anything else. Because I see now how that position would exhaust you. Tell me something honestly, even if you never say it out loud. Have you already told yourself that I am incapable of giving you the kind of security you need? Have you quietly downgraded your expectations to protect your heart? If you have, I cannot blame you. But I need to know whether I am arriving to rebuild or arriving to accept loss. There is something else I have not admitted fully. When I declined that opportunity before boarding this flight, I did it because I realized that if I kept choosing expansion over intimacy, I would eventually look up and find myself successful and alone. And the thought of being alone with achievement feels hollow now. You changed that. You made me aware that success without shared presence is incomplete. But that awareness came late. And late awareness does not guarantee forgiveness. The turbulence is stronger now. The plane shakes slightly, then steadies. I grip the armrest without realizing it. It hits me suddenly. If you open the door and your eyes are distant, I will know immediately. I will feel it. And I will have to stand there and accept that my delay cost me the woman I love. That possibility feels almost unbearable. But here is the deeper fear. What if you are still open and I fail again? What if I promise integration and then slip back into old patterns? What if I hurt you twice? That thought terrifies me more than rejection. Because rejection ends pain quickly. Breaking your trust slowly would be far worse. We are minutes from landing now. There is no more sky left to hide in. When I step off this plane, I will have to speak clearly. Not intensely, not poetically, clearly. And there is still one confession I have not made. One that might shift everything in a way you do not expect. But I need to see your eyes before I decide whether to say it. Tell me something in your heart right now. If I stand in front of you and say, "I am ready to build a life," not just moments, will you let yourself believe me? Or has the doubt grown too strong? The wheels touched down harder than I expected. A sharp jolt. A rush of reverse thrust. And suddenly the sky was over. There is something sobering about landing. The illusion of distance disappears. The moment becomes real. I am taxiing toward the gate right now. And my heart is beating in a way I cannot regulate with logic. I have faced rooms filled with critics. I have stood in front of investors, governments, skeptics. None of that feels like this. Because none of them could break me the way you could. I keep thinking about what happens if I stand in front of you and see that softness is gone. Not anger. Not tears. Just emotional closure. That quiet closure women master when they decide they are done. You once told me that when you love deeply. But when you withdraw, you do it completely. There is no halfway, and I have been gambling with that. There is something I need to admit before I even see you. During this flight, I imagined two conversations. In the first, you open the door and you say, "I can't do this anymore." In that version, I try to argue. I try to explain. I try to convince you that I am ready now. But in the second version, you say nothing dramatic. You simply tell me that you have found peace in detachment, that you no longer feel the same urgency, that you do not want to rebuild something that required this much turbulence. And in that version, I go silent. Because what can I say to that? Peace is sacred. And if loving me disrupted yours too much, how can I ask you to risk it again? The plane has stopped now. People are standing, reaching for their bags, impatient to leave. I am still seated. Because stepping into that asile means stepping into accountability. I need to tell you something that I have been circling for hours. I am not just afraid of losing you. I am afraid that I have already pushed you into becoming stronger without me, that you have grown in my absence in a way that no longer requires my presence. Do you know how humbling that is? To realize the woman you love does not need you to survive. She wants you, but she does not need you. And if she ever decides that wanting you is no longer aligned with her peace, she will walk. I think you are very close to that threshold. I felt it in the way you stopped reacting emotionally to my fluctuations. The way you began responding with balance instead of vulnerability. The way your words became measured instead of raw. You were protecting yourself, and I was still oscillating. There is a moment that keeps replaying in my mind. You said, "I don't want to fight for someone who isn't sure," and I responded by telling you I was sure. But I did not show it consistently enough. Certainty is not something you announce. It is something you demonstrate, and I have not demonstrated it fully. So here is the question that is crushing me right now as I finally stand and step into the aisle. Am I arriving in time to rebuild your trust, or am I arriving to witness the final stage of your detachment? Because if you have already emotionally stepped away, no speech will pull you back, and maybe that is what I deserve. But there is still one confession I have not spoken. One that feels almost too vulnerable to say before I see your reaction. It is not about business. It is not about sacrifice. It is about something far more personal. Something I realized in the silence above the clouds. Something that changes how I see the rest of my life. And I do not know if I have the courage to say it unless I see even a flicker of hope in your eyes. I am walking through the terminal now. Every step feels heavier. Tell me something honestly, even if only inside yourself. If I stand there and say, "I am ready to risk everything stable for something real with you," will you still meet me halfway? Or have I already exhausted your capacity to believe? I am outside now. The air feels different here. Grounded. Real. There is no hum of engines anymore, no altitude to hide behind. Just the sound of distant traffic and my own pulse in my ears. I have not called you yet. I am standing here with my phone in my hand, staring at your name like it is the final door between two lives. This is the part where everything either holds or collapses. There is something I need to say before I dial. Up there, above the clouds, when everything was quiet and I had nothing but my thoughts, I realized something that frightened me. If you walk away tonight, I will not chase another woman to fill the space. I will not distract myself with admiration. I will not convince myself that intensity can be replaced. Because what I feel for you is not intensity anymore. It is attachment. And attachment at our age is not reckless. It is deliberate. It is knowing someone's flaws and still wanting to build around them. You know my restlessness. My oscillation. My need for momentum. And I know your strength. Your boundaries. Your quiet power to withdraw when you feel unsafe. And here is the terrifying intersection. If you decide tonight that you are done protecting a connection that has cost you too much energy, I will have to accept it without performance. That is the emotional collapse I have been avoiding. The possibility that I am not the man you feel safe choosing anymore. Tell me something in your heart. Have you already mourned us? Have you already cried the tears privately and come to terms with the idea that loving me might not be sustainable? Because if you have, I will see it in your eyes within seconds. And I am not sure I am prepared for that reflection. I keep replaying your last look at me in person. It was not desperate. It was not pleading. It was searching. You were searching for evidence. Evidence that I would step forward, not sideways. Evidence that I would anchor, not drift. And I gave you words instead of structure. That is my failure. I thought love could survive on emotional depth alone. But depth without security becomes exhausting. And you are too mature to live in exhaustion. There is something else I need to confess. For a brief, shameful moment before boarding this flight, I considered canceling it. I thought, what if I give her more time? What if I let this cool down? What if I avoid the confrontation? That was fear speaking. Fear of seeing that I might have already lost you. But then I imagined waking up a month from now, knowing I had chosen comfort over courage. And that image disgusted me. So I boarded. Not because I am certain of the outcome, but because I am done avoiding truth. The deeper confession I have been holding back is this. I do not just want to continue what we have. I want to transform it. I want to remove the ambiguity that has been slowly eroding your trust. I want to stop being the man who oscillates between passion and absence. But transformation requires two willing hearts. And I cannot demand that from you. I can only offer it. I am about to call you now. And I need to ask you something that might hurt to consider. If I say, I am here, and I am not leaving without clarity, will you open the door? Or will you tell me that clarity has already arrived in your heart, and it does not include me? Your voice when you answered did not sound surprised. That is what unsettled me first. It sounded steady, almost prepared. Like you had already imagined this scenario and rehearsed your breathing for it. When I said I was outside, there was a pause. Not long, just long enough for me to feel the weight of it. You did not ask why I came. You did not ask how long I was staying. You simply said, okay. That single word carried more gravity than any confrontation could have. I am walking toward your building now, replaying that tone in my mind. It was not cold. But it was not eager. It was balanced. And balance, when it replaces longing, can mean one of two things. Either you are protecting yourself, or you are already detached. My hand is on the elevator button. My reflection in the mirrored doors looks calmer than I feel. I am not used to entering situations where I do not control the narrative. But tonight, I do not control anything. You do. The doors open. I step in. Each floor number lighting up feels like a countdown to a verdict. I need to tell you something before I reach you. When I realized how close I came to choosing comfort over you, something inside me shifted permanently. It was not dramatic, it was quiet. I understood that if I ever let you go because I was afraid of restructuring my life, I would regret it in a way that would not fade with time. I have lost deals before. I have lost partnerships. I have lost momentum. But losing you would not feel like a setback. It would feel like self-sabotage. And that is why I am here. Not to persuade you. Not to overwhelm you with emotion. But to stand in front of you and accept whatever truth you give me. The elevator stops. My heart is pounding in a way I cannot rationalize. I walk down the hallway toward your door. Each step feels heavier than the last. I keep asking myself one question. If she opens this door and her eyes no longer soften for you, what will you do? Will you fight? Will you plead? Or will you respect her boundary and walk away knowing you waited too long? I reach your door. I lift my hand. And for a brief second I hesitate. Because once I knock, there is no returning to ambiguity. There is only clarity, and clarity can hurt. I knock. The sound echoes louder than it should. Footsteps approach from inside. My breath tightens. This is the moment. If you open this door and say you are tired, I will have to hear it. If you open this door and say you still love me, but cannot trust me, I will have to own that. And if you open this door and your eyes still carry even a trace of hope, then I will say the one thing I have not said yet. The door handle moves. And before it opens fully, let me ask you one last question. When you see me standing there, are you going to close your heart or let it risk one more time? The door opens slowly. Not dramatically. Not hesitantly. Just slowly enough for me to see your eyes before anything else. And in that first second, everything I had rehearsed dissolved. You did not look angry. You did not look relieved. You looked tired but open, and that was more powerful than any embrace. We stood there in silence, inches apart, both aware that this was not a reunion built on romance. It was a reckoning built on truth. I saw it in the way your shoulders held themselves. You were no longer leaning toward me automatically. You were steady in your own space. Grounded. Self-contained. And I realized something profound in that instant. You had done the work I avoided. You had prepared yourself to survive without me. That realization did not make me defensive. It humbled me. Because the woman standing in front of me was not waiting anymore. She was evaluating. I stepped inside, slowly, not claiming space, but entering it respectfully. And before you could speak, I said the words I had been carrying across oceans. I am not here to visit you. I am here to choose you. You did not melt. You did not rush forward. You simply asked, choose me how? That question was not emotional. It was structural. And for the first time I answered structurally. I told you about the opportunity I declined. I told you about the decision to reorganize my time. I told you that I am done loving you in fragments. That if we continue, it will not be intensity followed by absence. It will be alignment. I did not promise perfection. I promised integration. And then I said the thing I have been afraid to say my entire life. I need you. Not want, need. Because you bring stillness to my chaos. You bring accountability to my ambition. You bring warmth to the parts of me that operate too coldly. You listened without interruption, and then you said something that almost broke me. I don't need grand gestures, I need consistency. And instead of defending myself, I nodded, because you are right. Love at our stage is not about fireworks. It is about foundation. So here is my clarity. If you are willing, I will build with you. Publicly, structurally, patiently, no more oscillation, no more ambiguity, no more emotional weather, just choice. And if you tell me tonight that you cannot risk it again, I will accept it with respect. But if there is even one part of you still open, I am here. Fully. No escape route. No backup plan. Just you.